Always in the second half of the show, we do have a lovely guest here in the studio talking about a certain topic with us. And today we have Tanya with us. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
No, absolute pleasure to have you on the show. I know you've been busy recently, so it means a lot that you've made a bit of time for us today. Well, Tanya's going to be talking a bit about a community that she's built here in Beijing called GloberWeb. But first and foremost, we always start the show in the same way. We want to introduce our guests to our listeners. And what's the first thing you always ask when you meet someone new? Tell us a little bit about yourself. So Tanya, tell us about yourself. What brought you to China?
Well, I'm originally from Bulgaria, but the past 14 years I was living in the US where I met my husband. And a few years after we met each other, we made that move to China. So I think it's one of the most common reasons that expats cite following your husband.
Is that the most?
I believe so.
Oh, okay.
One of the most common ones, I believe.
Okay.
Yes. So that's what brought me here. I left my career and I loved my job, but I decided that I love my husband more. So here I am now in Beijing.
Good for him.
Which I have never regretted, even for a second.
And when was that?
It was 3 years ago.
3 years ago, okay.
Yes. But Beijing is fascinating. It's been an amazing adventure.
Yeah,
yes.
It's 3 years. You've been here longer than I have. And in the time I've been here, I've noticed a lot of changes happening around the city. What were your first memories, or what memories do you have from when you first arrived here? What were your first impressions of China, having moved here from the US?
Oh my God. So this is a tricky question because, to be honest with you, I feel two contradictory things at the same time. I feel like I arrived yesterday. And at the same time, it feels like it has been a lifetime.
I know what you're saying.
Since I've been here. So, like I said, Beijing is fascinating. It changes so fast. And at the same time, change is the only constant, right? It's a quote from I don't remember whom, but it applies perfectly for Beijing. That is one of the things I love the most about the city.
I totally feel you. To me, there's the old Beijing. There's the new Beijing that we know of now. But the things in between are so blurry to me now. I remember when I was in primary school, then of course I can recall, middle school, high school, college, but there's nothing special about them. It's like the old days, which was 30 years ago, blink of an eye, it is now today. So that's how fast Beijing has been developing.
Yes.
So let alone expats, I think even locals, even Beijingers who have been here all their lives would be surprised first to see all these changes, but always find it so difficult to get accustomed to. But you just have to.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, even if you're someone, as you say, a born and bred Beijinger, the city can change that quickly that maybe sometimes it can be hard to get a foothold again. If things change that fast, it can sometimes leave you feeling a little bit left behind, like you're trying to catch up. I can imagine it's just the same if you're from a different Chinese province moving to Beijing for work. Even though you're within the same country, I imagine it can feel like a completely different culture sometimes when you move to a first-tier city and it's so much development and things happening. Then take that again. Imagine being someone who's coming from a different country, who doesn't speak Chinese, who's moving to Beijing as their first experience of China. It's going to be quite a shock in a lot of ways. It'll be an amazing experience, but let's not kid ourselves. There are some challenges and some difficulties there too. I know in my personal experience I've had some of those, but I'm interested to hear about your experience, Tanya. How did you find it when you first arrived?
I couldn't agree with you more. It's absolutely true. I mean, I love Beijing, and I also love the challenges here because they push you to get out of your comfort zone, to achieve more, to find certain things about yourself that you didn't even know about. And it's true. I think every expat should know that the first few months are challenging. So setting the right expectations is the first stage, right? And like you said, it's a completely new culture. It's fascinating, and I wish I spoke Chinese, but it is too difficult. And I also, just like most expats, had to get adjusted to a new culture, find new friends, find a new routine, because I left a very busy career and I came to be just left to explore Beijing in a way. And it is quite an adjustment. So I think there is a danger of being caught into the past sometimes, and there is sometimes a danger of focusing on the negative when you feel on the inside that you need to do something, but you're not quite sure what. So I believe this is very common for expats to go through in the beginning. But also, this is exactly the time when the greatest opportunities lie, because being in a new culture is an incredible opportunity to learn a new way of thinking, to develop your creativity, your innovation, because people from different parts of the world, they think differently, and that is the beauty of it. On my team in the States, for example, I had 3 people from China, I had people from Africa, the US, and Europe, and each one of them was so creative in the solutions for projects that they were coming up with that it was incredible. So to me, I chose to focus on the positive side of what China is and Beijing specifically, and try to learn as much about the culture as I possibly could. To meet new friends, to explore as much as I could. So to me, that was kind of the beginning. My way of thinking about it.
No, and it's a very sensible way to think about it, because if you listen to what the experts recommend, I mean, there have been so many articles on studies, on rates of mental illness amongst people who move to another country for work, amongst expats, amongst immigrants, about how, moving from one culture to another without the same sort of safety net as you have at home, your friends, your colleagues, your center of cultural reference, all being completely changed. If you don't have a certain, sort of sense of direction or sense of purpose, or, a drive to do something new, it can be quite a difficult adjustment to make. So it's interesting to hear how you said your decision was to straight away take the proactive approach to try to find these different activities and things so you could keep yourself going and keep yourself active, particularly coming from previously a very busy career to a time where perhaps you had a lot of free time to fill. But how was that, trying to find those different activities and things here in Beijing? I mean, it's not necessarily the easiest thing to do, particularly if Chinese isn't your first language and you don't have a big expat support network just yet.
Exactly. That was one of the greatest challenges that I ran into, because like I said, my way of thinking was I want to learn new things, but also I need to meet new people, make new friends, and I figured the best way to do that is by doing something that you love, or learning a new skill, or even just keeping healthy. And that was exactly a challenge, because now I know that there is a wealth of activities around Beijing for expats that are led in English, but it was extremely challenging to find those in the beginning, because also, I mean, I love WeChat now, but when I first arrived, I knew 2 people. I was in 2 groups, and that was it. So it was very challenging to find those in the beginning, and luckily for me, I'm not that shy, so I talk to people. But I would imagine for others it would be even more challenging. So I started finding those places, and I truly enjoyed my time. I tried things that I didn't even know existed, and I learned a lot. And this is when I decided to create the platform. So I can help other expats kind of jump through that stage and go directly to the enjoyable part, because there is so much out there, and there is also so many people who offer amazing activities, amazing classes. They're great teachers, but it's hard also for them to get the word out, and it is hard for expats to discover them right away. So I wanted to put the 2 sides together and make it easy for an expat whenever they arrive in Beijing. They want to go to yoga, be healthy, they can search for a yoga class. They want to go for a painting class, they can do so. So
yeah, I loved so much what you said. I mean, open-mindedness is probably the most important thing when you're in a different place. For expats here in China, or for Chinese people going abroad. That's partially the reason in the past, a lot of Chinese students studying overseas would tend to, just stick together with their Chinese folks all the time. To me, that's not the way to go. Luckily for me, I was also open-minded when I was, anywhere in the world, although not for a long time, but I would be very absorbent, witnessing different people, doing different things in different ways. I think that's all not only knowledge, but also a wealth to your mind, knowing that there are different people out there who would do things differently than you. That actually provides you a new alternative for a lot of things in the future. So you also said that's what led you to eventually start your platform GloberWeb, which would provide a lot of useful things for newcomers as you used to. So exactly what does GloberWeb do for them?
It is exactly the connection. So basically, the way it works is very simple. Let's say there is a venue that offers cooking classes. They can list those on the platform, and expats can go on GloberWeb.com and search for the exact thing that they're interested in maybe language classes, maybe cooking classes, maybe painting classes, maybe yoga classes. So everything is classified by an area of interest, so they can find different options. Because for me also, that is a big advantage to have the options, because all of us have different learning styles. And let's say with yoga, it's the easiest example, right? There may be an amazing teacher out there that you love, but maybe it's not my style. However, maybe there is someone that is not your style, but I love them. And to me, it's important for people to be able to pick and choose, try different things, and have that freedom of options out there.
That's so great
to enjoy. So this is it. It's truly a platform where people who offer those can post it, and of course we make sure that the class is in English. That is our number one requirement, because we want the expat to go there and feel comfortable. Or maybe even a Chinese person who prefers to take a class in English. Absolutely okay. And we look for the language to be at a level that an expat would feel comfortable with.
I was about to ask, whether you specifically include classes in foreign languages, or are, Chinese entities being included. But how do you discover all these places? Like through word of mouth or through personal experiences?
It's a combination of things, including what you just mentioned. In the beginning, it was word of mouth mostly. I was asking people, being proactive about it, trying to find certain activities that mostly I was interested in knowing more about. And then it kind of started a snowball effect. Even people who were already on the website, they would refer their friends that were teaching something else or had a business, a venue that offered different types of classes for expats. And it kind of kept going and going. So we always, however, make sure that all the requirements are met. So people feel comfortable and know what to expect.
Yeah, it's a really good idea, because I guess if you're doing something in English, it's a lingua franca, around the world, no matter which country you've come from. I'm guessing if you've been posted overseas, if your partner's got a job abroad, if you've got a job abroad and you're just wanting to make new friends, a lot of people within that sort of global community have, some level of English understanding. So already you're on a level, a sort of, you've already got a connection with the people that you're meeting. You've got a reference point. You can communicate with people easier. And maybe if you're new to China, you haven't got much Mandarin. I can imagine that could create sort of almost a safe haven in a way for some people, a sort of a mini sanctuary. I can remember when I first arrived here, I was in the same situation as you. I came with my partner for his new job, and I found myself with a lot of free time all of a sudden. And I also found myself with about 4 words of Mandarin. And though I tried to expand my repertoire, I'm tone deaf, so it wasn't always the easiest thing to do. And I would find it quite difficult. I'm quite a chatty person, very communicative. I could go for hours in the day where I didn't speak to anyone until, apart from saying, Ni hao, duo xiao tian, xie jie, bye bye. That was literally about all I could say. And then I added Tai Guila to my repertoire, and great, I had an extra phrase. But, I found myself quite, I don't know, almost lonely. I felt like a dog that had been left home all day. And as soon as James came home from work, I was so excited to see him. And I think it was just almost like a word salad, a barrage that used to come at him of me going, hi, how was your day? What have you been doing? I've been at home all day. I think he found it a bit overwhelming at times. And I did find it when I started to meet new people, and like you say, through word of mouth, through gradually getting added to different WeChat groups, I discovered new friends, new things. And, that's how I eventually found Radio Beijing International, through word of mouth, through friends. But one thing I firmly do believe, if someone is ever going to be posted to Beijing, gets a new job in Beijing, everyone should get a crash course in WeChat 101. I think it would make such a big difference, because I think people just think at the beginning, oh, it's just a social network. It's a way of chatting to people. Fair enough, I've got that at home. I don't think people realize just how much it's built into social life and everyday life here. And unless you've got someone at the very beginning who can take you by the hand and say, okay, here's this app. It looks a lot like other apps you may have seen, but it works in ways that you haven't possibly expected or anticipated. That would make a big difference, I think, to people.
I totally agree to you, let alone the functions that WeChat can offer. It's probably similar to all the other social media, but here in China, this is a social media that's really attended to by nearly 1 billion people.
Exactly.
Yes, it's really integrated into the day-to-day life. Absolutely.
No,
it's true.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. And through that, from out of all those, billions of people and the millions here in Beijing, GloberWeb started to put together this directory of different activities, connecting people with these activities. And they're for people of all different ages and interests, like you said. I mean, I noticed on your website, there's things for children there too. So parents and children can get involved too. That's a good way of getting children who are perhaps new to the city as well involved in things. I thought that was a really good idea. What sort of feedback have you had on all this?
Actually, it has been amazing. That is actually the biggest force that keeps it going, because one of the greatest things that I have heard from multiple people is that they have met their best friends at those activities, and they have explained to me exactly what our stories are. I came here and I was so alone, and then I found this amazing class on your website, and I met my best friend there because we both like doing this. And it is those stories that make you feel really good that you're contributing to the community, and this is what forms a community, right? Because it's people with different interests, but you connect them based on their common strive to learn and to improve themselves, and to really enjoy and thrive in a new environment that is so different from what they know, and to make them feel home through this. So that has been a fantastic experience.
I mean, the development of GloberWeb, as you said, is a snowball effect. But I would picture it being very, very difficult at the beginning. Only being here for not that long, and not really knowing Chinese, not so many friends around, but trying to discover all these places through different channels and put them on your platform for other people to appreciate, and also to make it easier for them. It must have been very difficult at the beginning. Can you maybe describe your early days with the web?
Now that you're mentioning that, I start thinking about the details. But in a way, it feels like, that saying that if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life.
True.
It's something like that. It took time, but also I managed to surround myself somehow with people who believed in the same thing. So even though they weren't directly involved with the website, they were really brand ambassadors, if you will, for what we were trying to accomplish, and that is how it grew. And it did take a lot of time, and I had to learn new skills, new technical skills. That was challenging as well, but also that was one of my goals when I first arrived, right? To continue my professional development without having a job here. So I think with all new initiatives, it is always hard in the beginning. But it's also very rewarding, and that's why I remember waking up in the morning and can't wait to find a new place, to try a new thing, and like I said, to discover even things that I didn't know existed, but they were there and they were really fun for me. And I met amazing people, and even the teachers who are offering those, a lot of them are either expats or Chinese people who have maybe come to Beijing from a different province, or maybe they lived abroad and came back here, and to hear all those stories and the way they have built their business, why they're teaching what they're teaching, it's very inspiring. It's very inspiring.
It's really nice hearing that. Well, there are newcomers here in Beijing every single day, other places too. You know, to Kat, she would recommend WeChat as the first thing to do as they arrive here. Would you say differently, or would you agree that's what you should do? Or is it maybe picking up, a language class in Mandarin, or is it finding a foreigners group? What would it be to you, to the first thing recommending to these people?
I think it's a combination of things. So the reason why I wanted, for example, GloberWeb to be a website is so people can search for it and prepare even before they come here. So WeChat is extremely helpful when you're here. Obviously, as we talked about before, right, it's so ingrained in the day-to-day life that you have to learn how to navigate it. A language course is a must as well, at least just survival. Chinese, I'm in the same boat as
at
you.
least know how to say 太贵了.
Honestly, it's essential.
That is part of the survival, yes. So, and also you understand the culture in this way, right? When you pick up the language a little bit, you understand the way of thinking, the culture, you feel closer to the place. And then to get involved with as many activities as possible. Obviously, that is what I believe in, and that's why I'm working on that. But it gives you inspiration. It also makes you more creative for the future. It gives you that innovation, like you were talking in the show in the beginning, right, about all the technical jobs that are being offered and how technology is so much in the forefront. A big part of technology is innovation and creativity, and it has to come from different sources. It's those alternative ways of trying to expand your mind and bring up new ideas actually comes from places that you least expect.
Yeah, and that's a really nice way of putting it, and such a positive way of thinking about the expat experience. I mean, especially if you're the partner of someone who's come over here for work, and maybe you don't have your own job to go into, because that's not always the easiest thing. It's not always guaranteed you will find another job, and you may think that's kind of the end for now of my professional development. That's put the brakes on that for now. I'm following a different path. But the way that you see it and the way that GloberWeb does things is it's another way of developing your own. It's a different way of personal development. You can still develop and grow and find new skills and nurture new talents in a different way, in a different country, but make new friends at the same time. I think it's so interesting, and it's been really interesting and inspiring to talk to you. I want to know then, what are the plans for GloberWeb for the future? We've got it well established here in Beijing, but what does the future hold? Any plans in the pipeline for us?
Yes, actually we're working on a lot of different things, and soon we'll make some announcements, so follow us. We'll post them on the website, on our social media, so stay tuned.
All right.
Okay, and if people want those, what's the best way of them finding it?
GloberWeb.com.
Okay.
Sign up also for our newsletter, because with it we send our creativity blog posts as well. So we try to focus on how these activities can help you in your regular day job as well, and to inspire you to do more. Also, we're on WeChat, of course, and all other social media. So just search for GloberWeb.
Perfect. And GloberWeb, just in case you need the spelling, is GLOBEER web.com. So thank you so much for that, Tanya.